Greetings to you, conversationalists all across the fruited plain. We've got broadcast excellence staring you straight in the face. I am happy to be the practitioner and the one who executes. I say executor, but that's Larry Lawrence kind of lingo. He's in the news, but not in the way we hope to establish today, at least mood-wise. So welcome, my friends. As always, it is a pleasure to have you as we roll on even deeper into the joyous holiday season.
Live from New York, it's Open Line Friday.
And as you know, on Friday, we suspend some of our stringent and strict rules. Whereas Monday through Thursday, we do not allow topics to be discussed. We only allow events to be discussed. That's news items that are currently transpiring. On Friday, we open it up. Not only do we include the discussion of events, but we will allow callers to discuss topics that may have nothing to do with the news on this particular day. So, Mr. Snerdley standing by, already putting some calls up. Yours could be next if you're fortunate enough to get through. The telephone number, 1-800-282-2882. My friends, I want to start off today with some personal reflections, but first, just to let you know, we are, of course, going to discuss the major blow that Microsoft suffered yesterday at the hands of a federal judge. It's a temporary order requiring Microsoft to stop packaging the Internet Explorer with its Windows 95 operating system or any future Windows operating systems. Also, we have the indictment of Henry Cisneros, 18 counts. By the way, I have here a list of all the independent counsel investigations that are going on and what they have borne so far, speaking of the fruit of the labors. And for those of you who think that independent counsels are worthless and so forth, wait till you have your memory jogged. It's just exactly what the current crop of independent counsels have dug up. Speaking of being dug up, Larry Lawrence was dug up yesterday morning, 7 o'clock. It took 4 hours to disinter the disgraced former ambassador to Switzerland. He has been flown back to San Diego, where he will be buried amongst family in that part of the country. So he's gone, and they say that gravesite's going to remain open unoccupied for quite a while. The Landmark Legal Foundation, one of the legal advisors of this program, has issued a statement today following the indictment brought against former HUD Secretary Henry Cisneros. This is a statement. Janet Reno, who triggered the appointment of an independent counsel to investigate former HUD Secretary Henry Cisneros, has sent a strong and clear message to the public. No longer will unethical and illegal conduct by second-tier cabinet secretaries be tolerated. Such behavior is reserved for the highest office holders in the land, the President and Vice President of the United States. Also, I had a sudden thought. I'm watching all this, and I'm reading all this reaction to this global warming treaty. By the way, we've got news today. A famous, renowned climatologist has just revealed information that he's learned that greenhouse gases are actually decreasing. Man-made greenhouse gases are plummeting, and he doesn't quite understand why, since there's more human industrial activity now than at any time in American history. Doesn't understand why, but global warming is still a huge threat. Anyway, reading all this, I'm stunned. Do you people realize we have more evidence on Bill Clinton than we have on global warming? And we are about to establish legislation and laws that will affect all human beings on the planet based on no evidence. There's no evidence that humanity is causing, no evidence that the warming is even occurring. And yet you look at all the evidence we have on Bill Clinton, and people go, ho hum, I'm apathetic. How can people be so caring and concerned about a mythical global warming and yet apathetic about the President of the United States? Anyway, to the personal reflection. You know, there's a new method of watching video. It's called a DVD, a digital video disc. And I like to stay on the cutting edge. So when these things became available, I had my audio video consultants run out and get a couple of these things and put them in my rack. And I hadn't gotten a DVD disc yet. Well, when I had it put in about 3 weeks ago. In the mail the other day, I received from the folks at American Gramophone, which is Mannheim Steamroller, I got a DVD of their Christmas concert. It is the Christmas concert CD that you've heard, or if you've ordered subscription to the Limbaugh letter, it is the cassette version of that concert that now has video to it. And I have to tell you something, folks, and this is not a comment on, well, DVD is fascinating, I must tell you. It's the size of a CD. And it has the capability of far more data than a large laser disc. The picture quality is just awesome. I look at mine on about a 9-foot screen. It's an Ampro projector with a Ferrugia line quadrupler, if that helps you video files. And I'm telling you that it is breathtaking. Just this whole format of DVD. But I'm not commenting on that. I just wanted to set it up. I popped this DVD in the machine, and I sat back and I watched this concert. And I had all sorts of memories come back to my mind. Every time I run into Chip Davis, I want to tell him, and everybody that's in his group, and they're just fabulous people. They are all geniuses. I'll tell you, this concert that they do is just amazing. Now, they're in Chicago tonight and tomorrow night. I went on their website last night after I watched this digital video disc, and I got the concert schedule for the remainder of the year. They're in Chicago at the Rosemont Horizon tonight and tomorrow night. Next Tuesday, they'll be out the Nassau Coliseum out Long Island. On the 19th, Friday, they'll be in Tampa at the Ice Palace. And then Omaha, they're there December 26th to the 28th. And I tell you, it just took me back. I first heard Mannheim Steamroller in 1984 when I was in Sacramento, and there was a production director out there. And I said, you know, I want to play some Christmas music here. On my program, and the guy said, "You heard Mannheim Steamroller?" I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "Well, I'm sure you have. You just don't know it. Is that the National Football League has been using some of their music as bumps coming out of commercial breaks during NFL games at Christmas time playoffs." And I said, "Really?" So at that time, they had one Christmas album out, just called Mannheim Steamroller Christmas, and I got a copy of the CD, and I put it in, and I just literally, I fell in love with it. And then I recognized some of the stuff that I had heard in the National Football League. And there are selections on that first Christmas CD that, you know, will actually just on their own bring tears to your eyes. Of course, one of them is Silent Night. So I played it for the 3.5 years I was out there. I played it, and periodically they would reduce or release new Christmas CDs. Then I started this program in June of, actually August of 1988, and when Christmas time rolled around, began playing the Mannheim Steamroller Christmas CDs as part of the bump rotation during the holiday period. And one thing led to another, and eventually I had the opportunity to meet the band, Chip Davis, and there's some really great people, too. And I did not get to a concert last year because of this scheduling conflicts. And I've seen them in Chicago, took the whole staff one year to Chicago, including my mom and brother. I've seen them in Orlando. I've been to 3 different concerts, but I had not seen the current incarnation of the concert until I plopped in this digital video disc. I'm telling you, those of you who are going to be tonight at the Rosemont Horizon or tomorrow night, you have, and if you've not seen the new one either, you have no idea what's in store for you. It is, it's literally amazing, the things that they have done with huge video screens, huge video screens on stage. The light show that's part of this. They've even added a member. They've added a new member of the group, which I didn't know. Her name is Roxanne Layton. So there are now 7 full-fledged members in addition to the orchestra and the concertmaster. And I tell you, there was, when they got into the Silent Night and some of the other stuff, I actually, and you're going to chuckle at this, and if Marta's listening, she will too, I actually got choked up. One of the reasons that this music has such a deep meaning for me, when I was traveling around all over America in 90, 91, I'd fly with headphones and listen to music, and at Christmas time, of course, I would take the steamroller stuff. And I was in Minneapolis to do a Rush to Excellence performance there. And on Saturday morning, I got a phone call that my father had passed away. This is in December, early December. And just sat in a hotel room all afternoon waiting for the performance to occur. Went ahead and did the performance because they had a lot of tickets sold for it Saturday night, so I did it. And then flew to St. Louis, then to Cape Girardeau the next day, which was Sunday. And for the remainder of that month, traveling around doing the Rush tour, I would take the steamroller music. And when you're up there at 35,000 feet or 39,000 feet, and you've got the headphones on and you're listening to this music, and it's shortly after, in my case, my father, but a very close family member has passed away, you look out the window, it's a clear night, you see, even from an airplane window, you see the stars, occasionally you see the moon, and then you listen to, I remember the song, it was Still, 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 and it was from their second CD. And I had tears coming out of my eyes as I was listening to this. I can't describe this, and I'm not trying to be melodramatic about it, but it just made me feel entirely confident that my father had moved on to a better place. And it was heartwarming. It was not distressing or troubling in any way at all. And that one, and I'd always loved the music, but once that connection with it had been made, it's always taken on a much deeper meaning than just liking a certain kind of music, a certain band. And of course, Christmas time with my family was always a huge holiday, and my father loved it, grandfather, grandparents, the whole family loved it. Everybody got together, and the music just brings back the fondest of memories, and especially of my father, and who was always happy around Christmas time, and he loved classical music to begin with, and some of their selections bear a classical resemblance. So I've told all this to Chip Davis when I've run into him, and Jackson Berkey and his wife Almeda, who are also members of the group. And everybody has different reasons for liking things, but I will always consider this music as a direct connector to memories of only the greatest kind to me and my father. And I imagine Chip has people tell him stories all over the place about why they like the music so much. I don't know if it embarrasses him or not, because what do you say when somebody is telling you this other than thank you, which they've just been tremendous. But all of this that I'm telling you came rushing back into my head last night as I'm watching this concert. These people are just geniuses. This music is indescribable to me in terms of the meaning that it conjures up and the spirituality that it conjures up in me. And who knows whether any of that is intended by the band. I don't know that it is, and they probably don't care as long as you like it. But I'll tell you, folks, this concert is just amazing. The music is beautiful. I told you earlier on, I was proud as I could be when we were able to make arrangements with American Gramophone to offer a cassette of the live concert with a subscription to the Limbaugh letter. I'm proud of any tie-in we always have with a lot of people, especially Chip Davis, Mannheim Steamroller. They're going to be in New York next Tuesday night out at the Nassau Coliseum, and I am going to do everything I can to get out to that. I've got to see this live. I have not seen this concert. This is so different from what previous concerts were. So you in Chicago who are heading out tonight, brace yourselves. You are in, especially if you've been to a concert before, but you haven't been to one recently, you're going to see things that you will not believe. In terms of production of this and the use of video that goes along with it. So I think it's fitting that I get my DVD player, and the first digital video disc that I view is the Mannheim Steamroller Christmas Live concert. So take a break here, folks, and be back in just a second. Touch on the news, plus your phone calls, all coming up, so don't go away.
You're listening to the EIB Network. Time for opinions and analysis of the news with Tom Traddip.
All right, first things first this Friday morning. I've gotten more than a few calls about yesterday's commentary on the new French fries at Burger King, mostly from listeners who say they or family members or friends work at McDonald's. Why don't you ever say anything good about them? They ask. All right, here are two good things about McDonald's. First, I own 100 shares of McDonald's stock myself, so believe me, I don't dislike them in any way, shape, or form. Secondly, as I was picking up my sausage McMuffin and coffee this morning, I noticed here on the paper bag that they came in that McDonald's is the official drive-through of NASCAR. Although it's kind of scary to run the visuals on that one if you stop and think about it. But anyway, don't get all bent out of shape just because I took a minute or two to profile some new French fries down the street. And speaking of getting bent out of shape, how about First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton getting tossed out of the University Club in New York City? Sounds nutty, but it's true. The wife of the most powerful man in the free world arrived at the upscale Manhattan Club for an interview with Cindy Adams of the New York Post newspaper. Adams, a gossip columnist at the tabloid, presented Mrs. Clinton with a little shopping bag containing a bottle of Adams' new perfume called Gossip. But when Mrs. Clinton spritzed a little to smell the fragrance, an elderly employee of the University Club dressed down the president's wife. "This is not permitted," the First Lady was told. "We have rules here. This will not be tolerated." As you might imagine, this came as something of a shock to Cindy Adams and Mrs. Clinton, as well as Mrs. Clinton's social secretary, Capricia Marshall, who was also there. "This is Mrs. Clinton," one of them blurted out. "This is not acceptable behavior," the women were told by this Poindexter Mensa type at the University Club. "You will have to leave. Have yourselves a warm, wonderful day somewhere else." Mrs. Clinton abruptly rose and said, "Let's go," and off they went. Now, like most Americans, I've got a couple of questions about all this on this Friday morning. First, why is Hillary Rodham Clinton wandering around crime-ridden New York City, where at any turn some hepped-up goofball might lunge at her with a banana knife? Why is she traveling with little more than a social secretary? Also, what campus do you suppose this Poindexter idiot working at the University Club just fell off of if he would be so discourteous to the First Lady of the United States in the first place? And finally, now that this Mensa type has thrown Hillary Clinton out of the University Club, how long do you think it will take before the upscale place suddenly is slapped with all sorts of fire code violations, surprise health inspectors in the kitchen, wink, wink, and a boatload of OSHA citations on everything from lead paint to a faulty air filtration system? Did you guess, say 12 noon today? Bingo! And it couldn't happen to a snootier place. For Daybreak USA, I'm Tom Tredup.
Yeah, by the way, this is from the Christmas Live cassette. Sounds great. You ought to see it. They did this. They recorded at the Orpheum in Omaha, their hometown, and it's the crowd goes nuts throughout this concert. Understandably so. Just an incredibly uplifting experience. Even seeing it on digital video disc. Go to Chicago. Ed, hello. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program on Open Line Friday. Great to have you with us.
Augsburg Confession Dittos, Rush. And I'm going to the concert tonight in Chicago.
Have you been to one before?
I have not.
Ah.
And I have just about everything that the Mannheim Steamroller has done. Like you, I heard them first in '84. And the story you told about Silent Night happened to me, too. My grandfather, that's what I remember, who died that year. And I remember that as well. Silent Night just brings tears to my eyes as well. Now, you've been to a concert.
I've been to 3 of them. I mean, maybe even more.
Well, I'm just wondering, you did a really good job as I was listening to explain it, but I'm wondering just exactly, well, not exactly since you haven't been to this show, but you saw the disc. The disc that you saw there, is that this concert or last year's?
No, it's last year's.
Okay. So
it's last year's. This was recorded in January of this year. But
right.
That would be last year's Christmas season tour in Omaha. I don't know that it's identical, but I don't think it's going to have changed very much. The stuff that's in this is such an upgrade from the previous. The Elizabethan tracks that are on the first Christmas CD are all acted out on video on a huge screen with the band superimposed as a huge banquet inside an old Scottish castle with the song with the song Patapan. There's an actual movie that goes with the song that explains what the song's about visually that you cannot possibly get. And we've played that video on my TV show, but they incorporate that. They incorporate a lot of video. I just think you're going to be incredibly moved by these songs that are sort of dramatic and slow. They'll be very evocative emotionally for you, and then they change pace at just the right time. Get out of that and move into some of the traditional Christmas stuff. You never are in one mood too long. It really is well choreographed and put together.
Now, is it all Christmas music, or do they do stuff from the Fresh Air series?
Now, that I don't know. On this DVD, there was nothing but Christmas, and it ran about 45 minutes. I could make a phone call and find out, but I would bet you that this is the second half. I'll bet you they'd still do some Fresh Air stuff because this was 45 or 50 minutes. Concert's going to be much longer than that, so I imagine they're still doing some Fresh Air stuff first. But that's just a wild guess.
Okay, because this is going to be the cap for my Christmas this year. My friend Kurt Taylor, who turned me on to you, by the way, back in the presidential election in '92, he's going to be going with us, and we've been listening to you forever, and this is part of our whole experience with Rush Limbaugh is Mannheim Steamroller Christmas.
Well, that makes my day, because I'll tell you something, all candor here, the real, one of the many beauties of being privileged to host a program like this is to be able to share with the whole audience the things that are meaningful and enjoyable to me. And when those things that I like are picked up by a whole bunch of people and are also enjoyed, then it just is that is a great feeling too. So I think you'll get a lot out of this. I think you'll be amazed at this concert. I think you'll be more than satisfied. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Open Line Friday, utilizing talent on loan from God at 800-282-2882. On this Microsoft deal with the Justice Department, where they have been given a temporary order to stop packaging the Internet Explorer, that's their their internet browser with the software, Windows 95. One of two ways to look at this. Microsoft could simply say, so what? I mean, if the Justice Department itself isn't going to obey the law, if the AFL-CIO doesn't obey the law, I mean, these are people that refuse subpoenas, these people refuse to testify. If the White House is not going to obey the law, but we all know there have been violations of the law there, why should Microsoft be forced to obey the law? I mean, I think Microsoft, if they had any guts, they just refused to obey the court order and say, we're just taking our lead from the White House, we're taking our lead from Janet Reno and Louis Freeh, we're taking our lead from the AFL-CIO. What the Justice Department says, what anybody else in the government says is, I mean, if we can selectively choose to obey this law and disobey that, we selectively choose to disobey this law. Tell you what this is really all about. And it's going to sound rather simple, but it's more complicated than you think. It's about integrated products. And who gets to define what is an integrated product? Microsoft says that the browser is an integrated part, an integral part of the software that they send out, and to separate them makes no sense. We've designed it as part of our software. And the government's going to say, no, it's not. You can't do that. So now we're going to have the Janet Reno Justice Department determining the future of the computer business in this country, it looks like. Now we got Henry Cisneros, indicted yesterday on 18 counts of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and lying to federal agents about payments that he made to a former mistress. The charges are the result of a 2-year investigation by independent counsel David Barrett into questions of whether Cisneros lied during an FBI background check after being nominated to HUD by Clinton 5 years ago. Cisneros is accused of deliberately underreporting the amount of support payments that he made to a woman named Linda Medler. Now, I was watching, I think it was Hardball with Chris Matthews last night, and I don't remember the name of the woman, some female reporter from it might have been Time magazine. I don't remember. Doesn't matter where she's from. They're all the same. And she said, well, this isn't really that big a deal, Chris. I mean, after all, Cisneros is not being indicted for anything he did as HUD secretary. But he didn't misuse the agency. Now, what kind of cop-out is it? You think that if it were a Republican director of HUD, that a member of the press would say, well, you know, it's not a big deal. I mean, he didn't, this is not an accusation about anything he did as HUD secretary. This has to do with stuff way back before that. What an absolute attempt to say, no big deal. So in that regard, I have here, my friends, a little list. I was going to say short list, but it isn't short, of the current status of all independent counsel probes. 17 investigations have been conducted by independent counsel since the institution was created in '74. The independent counsel investigations still underway are Cisneros, which began on May 24th, 95. That's cost so far $2.2 million. There's also an independent counsel looking into the Housing and Urban Development Department, which began in March of 1990 under allegation or investigation is allegations of criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States by Sam Pierce, Secretary of HUD, during the Reagan administration. There have been 7 guilty pleas, 4 convictions, 1 acquittal. Mr. Pierce himself was not charged. So far, the cost is $14.2 million. Whitewater started August 5th, 94. Kenneth Starr, of course, took over for Robert Fisk. We all know what's under investigation. The results so far are 6 guilty pleas, 3 convictions, and 2 acquittals. Cost so far $31 million. Then, of course, there's the Espy independent prosecutor. We know a little bit about that. Allegations are that Espy received gifts and entertainment from companies or organizations regulated by him at the Agriculture Department. He has pleaded not guilty and now awaits trial. Others have been tried on related charges. So far, 2 guilty pleas, 2 convictions, 4 acquittals, 3 firms have paid fines totaling $4.5 million. 2 more defendants await trial. Another awaits retrial after conviction was overturned. They spent $3.4 million so far since March of this year. You think independent counsels are irrelevant and don't count? They're nabbing people. They're getting convictions by juries. Here is Robin in Crystal City, Oregon. Robin, glad you called. Welcome to the EIB network.
Hi, Rush.
Hi.
Telepathic Orgasm Dittos from Crystal City. Do you remember me 5 years ago? I'm the one that called into your TV show to verify that your special telepathy had worked. So I'm part of that controversy that woman called about yesterday.
Yeah, let me retrace our steps. Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, a woman called upset at some of... Well, she wasn't upset. A guy actually called and was upset over some of the subject matter I use for humor on the program, specifically the president going into Katz's Deli on his last trip to New York. Katz's Deli in New York, where the orgasm scene of where Harry met Sally, or when Harry met, whatever that movie was, that's where it's filmed, and then no question why Clinton would therefore make a beeline to that deli. You don't have to say that, Rush, he said. I said, sure I do. If I don't say it, I'm going to get all sorts of grief for leaving it out. Then we had the story about the woman who was at Katz's Deli, who saw Clinton, thought he was a hunk. He's a babe, she said, a major babe. He's big and strong. He looks like he could really fix things around the house. To which I asked, I wonder what she thinks needs fixing around the house, her plumbing? And the guy said, see, you don't need to do that. You'd have it. Which led to a discussion by me, an explanation of why it is that you can't tune to this program in 1 day, 1 hour, 5 minutes, and hear it, understand it. You got to give it 6 weeks at least to hear it in context. And I went back and described a situation that occurred on my television show. There was a story. When did you say this was, Robin? 5 years ago?
December 1992.
All right. So it's 1992. That'd be 5 years ago. There's a story that crossed the news wires that some magician in Russia is running around doing public performances where he has the ability to create telepathic orgasms in women. And I thought, well, now this is patently ridiculous. And so to illustrate this, I decided on my TV show to try it, which got me in deep doo-doo with a lot of people. Other people thought it was funny, but I actually tried to telepathically transmit whatever is necessary to cause women in my studio audience and at home to experience orgasm. And you're now calling to say that it worked?
Well, I called your TV show and talked to you and told you it worked. So I was part of that was probably the show that her friend watched that said, you know, I can watch this kind of stuff anywhere, and gave me grief about being like that.
Robin, I asked you then, I'm going to ask you now. You making this up?
No. I called and talked to you, and then about 5 months later, you were in Cape when your niece was born, and my cousin was the delivery nurse. And you took pictures with her and gave me an autograph, and she just fell in love with you on the spot. And so this really happened. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's starting to come back to me now.
Okay.
Starting to come back. But I mean, yes, I remembered, of course. I'm asking you again, because anybody can call here and say anything.
Well, I called to verify that it happened on your show. And I understand, and I'm not going to, that's kind of racy, and I know how that woman didn't want her kids listening to that kind of thing. My daughter still doesn't know what I talked to you about on your show.
How old is your daughter?
She's 11. But 5 years ago, she was 6, and she knows that I'm on your show. She knows we've got it taped. But she just asked me the other day, what did you talk to Rush about? And I just told her,
she's not old enough yet. She's not old enough. Well, when are you going to let her? When are you going to let her in on it? I mean, at what age?
18 or 20.
Oh, so she's only got 7.
Whenever you do have something, racy on, I either press the record button. Sometimes if it's really racy, you let us know. And I get my kids out of there. I tell my kids. That's
the key. By the way, Robin, thanks. I'm glad you made that point, because whenever anything like that comes up, I always give people 5 or 6 seconds to tune out. I always warn that something's coming up you may not want to hear. I've always said we're not here to shock anybody. We're here to illustrate absurdity by being absurd. If you don't want to hear something, fine, you won't hear it if you just turn out. The reason we do this, too, is because I don't want somebody calling up the station management and saying, I can't believe it. I want the management to be able to say, hey, he warned you it was coming. You could have turned it off. So don't hold us responsible. You're the one who hung in there and subjected yourself to whatever you thought it was going to be. So, well, Robin, thanks for these refreshing memories. I appreciate it. And you're very brave here, calling from Crystal City, Oregon, to admit that this happened to you while watching my television show. We'll take a break and be back in a moment. My friends, don't go away.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Hi, how are you? El Rushbo. Relearning all sorts of interesting things about myself, as I'm sure many of you are learning for the first time. South Bend, Indiana is up next. Kevin, you're on Open Line Friday. Hello.
Yes, Rush, I'd like to give you 20-something cigar-smoking SUV driving dittos.
Thank you, sir, very much.
My question for you is listening this week and hearing about all the kooks that are questioning the TWA 800 conferences and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it, however, that we should sit there and believe an investigative panel without questioning? Now, I firmly believe that we should always question. Without that is our chance to lose our freedoms.
Well, I question it, too. I mean, I have all sorts of questions about some of these things, but I don't develop alternative beliefs based on less evidence than what the investigators come up with, and then believe things that I get sent to me by people I don't know over the internet,
right,
simply because it's some explanation that involves a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't look at myself as intellectually brain dead. I'm not looking for villains everywhere. But I don't think that you are a kook necessarily just because you're skeptical. That you have to do far more than be skeptical to be a kook. You've got to believe the most outrageous things in the world and then claim to have proof of it from people that you've never met before, people that you don't know, or that you get to know, in various ways, primarily internet, email, chat groups, or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
think there's a big difference in a skeptic and a kook.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying that like aliens shot down the plane or anything, but
well, I'm not either.
Oh, I know.
I think it's pretty kooky to think that the Navy shot down the plane.
Well, I do too. I think out of all the alternative situations that may have happened, I suppose a terrorist attack is probably the most plausible. But I'm not claiming to know what happened. I don't know what happened. But there are ways that, like, Boeing could be shut up. You were saying yesterday, why would Boeing sit there and put up with this? Well, why bite the hand of the person that feeds you? Boeing's major moneymaker is the government.
This is a classic example of what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't evidence of anything.
Oh, I'm not
that
saying
is
it is.
No. But yes, but well, maybe not. Maybe this call is I'm not a kook, but I have some friends who are, and here's what they're saying. But let me tell you something. That is not evidence. That is an explanation for why this is tough to explain because I don't have the mentality. So I'm sitting here trying to analyze all this, and it's tough because I don't want to be cruel or mean here. But you've just hit the nail on the head with that, because the fact that Boeing would ostensibly sit here and take all this isn't evidence of anything.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just like I said, I'm skeptical, and I'm skeptical of every bit of evidence. And it's not a matter of whether I believe or disbelieve. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind. I wasn't there. I wasn't an eyewitness. I'm not an investigator. I'm just saying I don't believe in sitting here and blindly following a government committee. You know, there should be, I personally believe that the private industries should be the ones that investigate and so forth.
Well, I will guarantee you that whoever investigates this, if they don't come up with the explanation the kooks want, they're going to be suspected too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But no matter who, it's not who does the investigation with the kooks, it's what they come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things about kooks, that since you've asked, kooks are people that I think they're genuinely good-hearted people, and I think they just don't believe some of the things that are happening in America today. And to them, these things that are happening are so outrageous and so unbelievable that there has to be something sinister to explain it, not something simple. There has to be something sinister to explain this. This is why I think that we've had a rise in the degree of kookdom and a rise in the population in Kookville. And it's directly tied to who sits in the White House. We've got sinister in the White House. And we've got somebody who has lowered standards in almost every which way you look at the presidency and perceive it. And when we have allegations by responsible bodies, from different groups that all have things in common, and there's reason to be very suspicious of the commander-in-chief about certain things, it just adds, I mean, if that's top-down thinking, it just adds to the possibility that other things might be screwed up, too, that this guy can get his hands on. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if you've heard all these, the various kook theories. It might help you to understand why I think what I do if you knew some of the kook theories. One of the kook theories running around is that Clinton shot down TW-800 because there was somebody that was supposed to be on the Ron Brown mission that got shot down in Bosnia. But since the guy somehow didn't go on the trade mission, he knows some dirt on Clinton. They had to shoot him down, too, and he found out he was going to be on TW-800. And so they arranged for some sort of accident with the Navy to make sure that everybody who had the goods on Clinton regarding something is now dead. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That's the kind of stuff that's circulating out there that believe me, has all sorts of people willing and firmly believing it. That's why I say there's a big difference between skepticism and kookdom. Quick break. We'll be back with more in a second, my friends. Don't go away.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Well, we're about to wrap up the first hour of broadcast excellence on Open Line Friday. By the way, I just got a fax from the buddies at Mannheim Steamroller, and I was right. My instincts once again right on the money. The first half of the concert is a Fresh Air series. It's from other Mannheim Steamroller music, and it's after the intermission and they get into the Christmas suite. And that's what the cassette is. It's what the DVD is, just to answer your questions. Now, go to Pittsburgh, home of the Steelers. We've got a big game against the New England Patriots tomorrow at 4 o'clock in Foxborough. Larry, hello. Welcome to the program.
Oh, hi, Rush. Steeler dittos.
Thank you, Larry.
This is truly an honor.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm a loyal listener. I've been listening to you. I got more seniority than most people, even though it wasn't the Institute of Conservative Studies. We go back to WIXZ, KQV days, way back.
Oh, man, you're early 70s.
Listen, Rush, I just called about the lady that called yesterday about the sexual innuendos. Like I said, people out there listening, I've been listening to this man for 7-8 years, and you're the classist act I've ever come across. You're always tasteful, but informative, and you do it decently. There's no equal. Your legacy is going to be infinite. You're going down in the history books.
Well, gee, that's very, very kind of you to say. I appreciate your perceptiveness, too. I wish more had it. Not about the legacy stuff, but about the way the innuendos are used here.
Right. It's you were always a class act, Rush, even back in the rock and roll Wixie days. I mean, some of the shock jocks back in those days, We won't mention any names, but they were, they were far, far out there, and you were always still, you were interesting, informative then. Even though you were just introducing records. I can't believe I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I love you, man. I love you, man.
Hey, Rush, can I say hi to somebody?
Yeah.
Jeff Jensen out in Yucca Valley. He's my ex-brother-in-law, but he'll always be my brother. He's a loyal listener, too. I'm sure he's listening in.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for what you're doing. You're a great American, making great Americans.
Larry, thanks very much. We'll be back.